The stitch we are going to be swatching today is out of this Japanese Stitch Dictionary, 1000 Knitting Patterns books. The rest of everything else is in Japanese, so I can't really tell you exactly what's going on here or even who the publisher is, but I will do my best to put a link in the description below to where, like, I'm sure I can find it on Amazon or someplace. So if you're interested in it, but this is one of my favorite ones, 1000 Knitting Patterns. The specific stitch we are going to do is this one, which is very creatively named number 123. So it doesn't really have a name, or if it does, I can't read it. This is what it looks like, which I think is really cool. And it has one of a family of stitches that you find in Japanese dictionaries. I'm going to call it a cinch stitch. I've consulted with a few people. They think it's a good word for it. I'm not really sure if there's an official name for them, but you cinch the stitches. So that's what I'm going to call it. And this is specifically what I think of as a pulled cinch stitch, because there are several different ways to do cinch stitches. This one involves pulling the yarn through the fabric. This is what the stitch looks like in the Stitch Dictionary. And this is what the chart looks like. It's a little on the wacky side, and probably even if you're familiar with charts, you're not going to have any kind of knee-jerk understanding of what these symbols mean. So that is why we are doing this stitch. I have actually rewritten it in writing, and this will be in the description below, but I also recharted it so that maybe it'll be a little more familiar. We've got knits and purls, which is fairly standard. And as always, when working flat, you read the row 1. You start where the number is. So this row is read right to left, and then you go up and you work left to right, zigzagging up. This is the stitch that y'all probably do not know. It is a pulled cinch stitch. We're working it on a ribbed fabric, which is not a default. I mean, there's all kinds of different fabrics you can work the cinch stitch on, but we're doing a 3-stitch wide ribbed cinch stitch. First off, I'm going to use a Gigantor yarn and big needles so that we can learn the cinch technique itself, and then we'll be ready to work the pattern. So I have a selvage stitch, that's a knit, and then we're going to purl just to get in, and then we have the ribbing. So these are knit, purl, knit. You can tell this is a knit because it's open on the bottom. You can tell this is a purl because it has that little necktie. See how it's closed on the bottom? And then this one is open. Now, to do a pulled cinch stitch, we're going to insert our right hand needle between these 2 stitches. Since we're doing 3-stitch rib, we're going 1, 2, 3, and we're going to go between the 3rd and the 4th stitch on our left hand needle. We're going to insert underneath the needle itself, but above the fabric that is below the needle. So see this hole right here? I'm sticking it in here. You can see it is above the fabric, but below the needle. You wrap just like you would do when you're knitting. You pull your yarn through. See how I pulled that through? I pulled this stitch. This is the cinch. I'm pulling it out fairly far. See how far it came out? Because I don't really want to distort my fabric too much. You then knit this next stitch, and you use your left hand needle to lift up this front leg of your cinch, pop it up and over and let it drop so it's gone around that knit stitch you made. Then it helps, I have found, to tighten that stitch because it gets loose otherwise. Bring your yarn to the front between your needles so that you can purl your next stitch. Then you move your yarn back so you're ready to knit this final stitch, and you have done a 3-stitch pulled cinch on a ribbing. Now, we're going to try to do it with my right hand, just so y'all can see it. If you've watched any of this, y'all know I'm right hand. I'm not real good at look at me, I'm trying to grab the yarn. So again, We're going to go between the third and fourth stitch because we're cinching these 3 stitches. I'm going under the needle, but above the fabric. See how that is? Take your yarn, wrap, pull through, and pull it through a good bit. Now insert to knit this next stitch. I'm so bad at this, guys. What's going on here? Okay, let's try this again. I'm so bad at the right hand. Okay, there we go. A knit stitch has been achieved. Now you take your left hand needle, grab that cinch, the front leg of that cinch right here, pick it up, slide it off the end, but don't lose that knit stitch, and then make sure your knit stitch is the appropriate tightness around there. Bring your yarn through the front between your needles, insert to purl, purl that, see, try that again. Guys, I'm horrible at the right hand. Get that through. Okay, you stay. See, got him. Got the purl. Bring it back between your needles. I default to my tensioning my left hand. Try that again. Insert to knit. Knit. Okay, that was painful, but I want you people who knit with your right hand tension to be able to see it. So we've done the 3 stitches and the cinches around. I'm going back to my left hand. And we're going to purl this last stitch for selvage. Move my yarn to front between the needles and slip that stitch. And so we have done our cinch stitch. Now the wrong side on this is simply ribbing. So I'm going to knit this first stitch. That's the selvage, and then we get into our ribbing. So knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, move the yarn to front, slip that stitch purlwise. So there we go. Here is, sometimes you got to pull it a little bit. Obviously blocking would help. So here is that cinch stitch. You can see I've done a little column and they stack on top of each other. And you can see that little cinch. Your knit stitch is popping out of that little stitch. Doesn't it look cool? So now we know how to do that stitch. We can proceed to this. Now, these are the written instructions. I will put them on screen for y'all. If you want to knit along with me, this is a repeat of 4 plus 3. What that means is that you need to cast on and work this in increments of 4. So 4, 8, 6, whatever. Increments of 4 plus 3. These 3 are your edge stitches to make sure everything centers up correctly. What I'm doing, and if you want to knit along, you need to start out by casting on 19 is what our little swatch is going to be. And then this is our first row. The way this is read is knit 1, asterisk. So this is our repeat. Purl 1, do our cinch stitch, repeat from the asterisk to the last 2 stitches. So I'm going to show you how to do that. I have 2 different yarns so that hopefully I'm going to try it in these 2 different yarns. I know that different people perceive their visual ability allows them to perceive differently. So I'm going to do one high contrast and one that's kind of lower contrast. So hopefully everyone will get benefit out of this. So I'm moving this up here. I'm going to tell you though. So we're going to knit 1. That's our selvage. That is one of the plus 3. Now our repeat is purl 1, cinch 3. So we're going to purl 1, and now for our fancy cinch stitch that we just learned. So here's 1, 2, 3. We're going to insert below the needle, between the stitches, above the fabric. Wrap, pull it through. So I pulled it out so far. knit our next stitch, grab this front leg, pass it up and over, and see when I'm doing that, see how this gets loose here? You got to cinch that guy back down. I use the word cinch too many times, I think. We're going to move our yarn to front between our needles, purl this next stitch, and then knit this next stitch. So that is our 4-stitch repeat. The 4-stitch repeat is purl 1, cinch 3. So we're going to repeat it. That's what the asterisk means. Purl 1. We got to cinch these 3. Knit, purl, knit. We're going to go between the 3rd and 4th stitch, wrap, pull through, knit, pass it up and over. Make sure that's tightened down. Purl 1, knit 1. That's the 2nd repeat. Let's do it again. Purl 1, cinch 3. Got to make sure I'm below and between. Pull that out. Knit 1. Oh, got to make sure that stitch gets off. Lift it up and over. Tighten that back down. Purl 1. Knit 1. Have we gotten until there's only 2 left? Nope, we still have 1 more repeat. And that is what repeat from asterisk to last 2 stitches. You keep working this 4-stitch repeat until you're to your last 2 stitches. I'm not to my last 2 stitches yet, so we got 1 more repeat. So I'm going to purl 1. We're going to cinch those 3. Pulled it out, see? Got that cinch stitch. Knit. Grab that front leg, up, over, tighten that down. Move yarn to front, purl, knit. Now we're down to our last 2 stitches. Purl 1, slip 1 with yarn in front. So we're going to purl the 2nd to the last stitch, yarn in front, insert as if to purl, and just slip it over. That gives us a nice edge. So we've worked our cinch stitches. Now it's time to go to the wrong side. I have flipped it over. Our wrong side is simply ribbing. And as we have our plus 3, which is the knit 1, and then the last 2 stitches. So knit 1 is my selvage. And then I'm going to knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, all the way to the last 2 stitches. Purl 1, purl 1, and we're to our last 2 stitches. We're going to knit 1, move the yarn to front, slip that last stitch with yarn in front, and that we have here. This is what the back looks like. You can see these are the stitches that we've pulled, the cinches, and this is what the front looks like. And you can see these little cinch stitches that we made. You see how they come across? Isn't that cool? And see how this is kind of loose like that? I told you, they are going to be like that. You can see on all my other ones. Because of the way the ribbing works and because of its nature, this first bunny ear is going to be a little distorted. And that's just the nature of this stitch. We'll go back before we're done and look at the picture in the book again because it looks the same way. So that is the first 2 rows, rows 1 and 2. We're going to switch to a different color for rows 3 and 4, right? Now, I'm ready for 3 and 4. What we're going to do here is we're actually going to do, it's very common in knit design, in stitch design, is offsetting. So when I was doing this first example, you can see how the cinches are stacked on top of each other. What I did is the cinch, and then I did a couple of rows of stockinette in between, so we can just stack them. In this, what we're doing is we're offsetting, and you can see they go back and forth. Let me get it closer. So this is one, and then it's offset, and so they're going back and forth, and that's what gives you an interesting pattern. So for rows 3 and 4, we're going to knit 1, purl 1, knit 1, then work our repeat from asterisk to last 4 stitches, purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, and now that looks and sounds a little bit funny. Let me show it to you on the chart. See how it offsets? So this is our repeat, and then it offsets. And to get it to offset, you have to have all these framing stitches to get everything to line up correctly, which is why row 3 is a little bit more complicated. It's not like crazy complicated, but it's a little bit more complicated. So we're going to knit 1, or not, knit 1, purl 1, knit 1. And so these are offsetting from the stitch below, so that the next stitch we're going to do is the beginning of the repeat. So we're going to purl 1, and then here's what we're cinching. And if you can see in the cinches, these are 3 stitches we're cinching, and they're each going to take a stitch from the cinch stitches below. See, they're going in. It's what makes it cool. So we're going to, again, go between the 3rd and 4th stitch, below the needle, above the fabric. Oh, focus, please. Did I get that? Yarn over like you're going to do a knit. Pull that through. Knit your next stitch. Grab that cinch stitch, pop it up and over. Drop it off the needle. Pull that one back in. Yarn between the needles. Purl 1. Knit 1. Okay. So that was our first repeat. We've made our cinch, and you can see the cinch, our first cinch below is over here, and you see how it's offset. So let's do our next repeat. So purl 1. We're going to cinch these 3 together between the stitches, below the needle, above the fabric. Pull through your cinch. Knit 1. Pop that up and over. Make sure you pulled that kind of tight. Purl the next one. Knit the next one. And there we go. We got a couple more repeats to do. So our repeat is purl 1, cinch 3, oh, pop it up and over, tighten. Ooh, I got both stitches there, I think. Purl 1, knit 1. And how many stitches do I have left? I have 4 stitches. We were repeating to the last 4 stitches because I don't have enough to do another cinch stitch. So it's purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, slip 1. So purl 1, knit 1, purl 1, slip 1. On the plus side, row 4 is exactly the same because we're just working in ribbing on the wrong side. So we're going to work our selvage stitch if my yarn wants to cooperate. So we knit 1, and then we go into our knit 1, purl 1 ribbing. So knit 1. Almost to our last 2 stitches, and our last 2 stitches are knit 1, slip 1 with yarn in front, and there we go. So there, that is, as you can see, how cool is that stitch? You can see how it's offsetting, and it makes this really interesting pattern. And you've got your little cinches, and they're super cool. So this is in the lighter color with a yarn that has pretty darn good stitch definition. I think this is a cotton cashmere blend. And then in the other one, you can see it's a darker color, so the pattern is maybe not quite as visible. And I did it on it's a different yarn, different needle. So it's going to have a different look, but it's got a nice texture. I think this would make awesome fingerless mitts or maybe a hat. And I also wanted to show you the very first swatch I made figuring this out. And you can see why I didn't show you this as an example, because this has some like tweety bits in it. And really the stitch pattern just kind of disappears. You can't really, I mean, it gives it an interesting texture, but you're not really seeing. And you know, if you blocked this really aggressively, it could get really cool. This is why I like playing and swatching and different yarns, because they all look very different and they can be really fun. Now, let's compare this. I told y'all we'll come back to the book itself, and this is the original. So as I told you, you can see this first stitch is distorted, and it's what gives it this really great diagonal appearance. And here is our little swatch that we made, and you can see now blocking would probably open it up a bit, and experimenting on what kind of yarns this particular pattern likes, but I think it's super fun. So I hope you have enjoyed this little swatching extravaganza. If you like this video, please give it the thumbs up. And if you would like to be notified whenever I upload a new video, please subscribe to my channel and select notifications. And if you would like to see more of these stitch videos, let me know that you like them. Bye-bye, y'all.